Let's talk a little bit about Shawn Porter for a moment. Shawn Porter really sometimes he gets the short end of the stick. Mostly because when it comes to the welterweight division, he hasn't really show improved as far as like beating any of the top welterweights. But one thing Shawn Porter does is always bring a good fight, and a lot of times he is the one that is going to be the ultimate test for most of these new crop of welterweights that's coming up. He's even a test for the top welterweights that's around now. He gave Errol Spence a good fight. Some people think he even won the fight against Errol Spence. Um, he gave Keith Thurman a good fight. Didn't win, but he gave him a good fight. He lost to Kell Brook. Um, but he gave Kell Brook a good run for his money. He gave Adrian Broner problems. You know, the only the funny thing is, people think Yordenis Ugas was a guy that is some kind of pushover in the welterweight division. But the strange thing is with Yordenis Ugas, he's one of the only boxers as of recent that Shawn Porter didn't really, he didn't bulldoze Yordenis Ugas. He kind of like tried to display his boxing ability in that fight, so to say. But he didn't really look convincing against Yordenis Ugas. Something to think about, you know, being that Yordenis Ugas more than likely will be facing Errol Spence soon. So keep that in mind. Shawn Porter is a test for everybody though, man. And there's been talks of him and Terrence Crawford fighting. He's Terrence Crawford's mandatory, but he has not activated the his mandatory status for the WBO. Not sure why. What's the holdup? There was also talk of them fighting a while back, and they said, well, we're friends, and they were talking that friend bull crap. But as of late, Shawn Porter has really thrown that out the window, and so is kind of Terrence Crawford. But Shawn is the one that has activated the Mando. At the same time, though, Bud ain't really pushing for Shawn Porter either. So he ain't like, okay, well, come on, Shawn, you're the Mando, let's get it. I haven't really came out and heard Bud say anything like that. So these new dudes, like Jaron Ennis, Virgil Ortiz, these dudes are some of the new age crop of welterweights that's coming up. And I think Shawn Porter would be a damn good test for them. He always comes to fight. Shawn Porter you never really hear him turn down fights. He doesn't really duck. But I think Jaron Ennis will probably do better against Shawn Porter than Virgil Ortiz will. See, Shawn Porter, man, if he uses that style, he brings the pressure to you. He's going to give these young dudes issues. Probably even Jaron Ennis, because they haven't really faced anyone with that kind of pressure, that kind of bulldozing, wrestling type pressure. They haven't really faced that yet. And watching Virgil Ortiz's performance against Maurice Hooker wasn't really putting pressure on him. He's not really a pressure fighter. But Maurice Hooker was even able to back Ortiz up a little bit. And you saw his face after the fight. So I feel, Shawn Porter, if he puts on that kind of style, bro, he's smother the shit out of Ortiz. He'll give Ortiz all kind of problems, man. And I think that's a really good test to gauge these new welterweights would be Shawn Porter. And I hate to say it like that, but that's pretty much what I think Shawn Porter is at this point. I think he is. I wouldn't want to call him a gatekeeper as to say yet, but he's kind of low-key gatekeeper at this point. He's kind of a litmus test for a lot of these fighters. That's not to say Shawn Porter can't give you a good fight, a good scrap. That's pretty much what all Shawn Porter really is at this point, is really a good scrap, a good test measure. Because Shawn Porter doesn't really have the power to really knock anyone out. I can't recall when's the last time Shawn Porter really even had a knockout, and he just more of a like mauler type boxer. But he hasn't really put anybody on their ass in a real long time. So sometimes you want to see that, and if you can't really do that when you have all the opportunity to do it, that really brings to question your power. But you still got to give props to Shawn Porter, man. He's a force to be reckoned with. He's one of those fighters that anything can happen. You never know. He might be one day you don't think he'll knock somebody out, and he might get a knockout that day on somebody that you don't expect him to knock out. But keep in mind, as I said, a lot of people count Ugas out against Spence, and I know a lot of people don't like to really talk triangle theories, but that's something to always think about when you compare Shawn Porter's performance against Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Kell Brook, Errol Spence, and then you compare those 4 fights he had against Yordenis Ugas, and you'll see how different Shawn Porter actually was in each of those fights. Anyway, let me know what you think. What you think about Shawn Porter, man? Let me know everything you think about him. Do you think he's a gatekeeper at this point, or if he still got a lot left in the tank, man? This is Rebel Life Boxing. I will catch you guys on the next one. Please like and subscribe and support the channel. See you guys later. Peace.